everybody. Welcome. It is Friday. It is 4:20 p.m. You know what that means, right? You know what that means. It is time for another brand new episode. Kill the music, people. What are we doing there? Another brand new episode of Because Cannabis. My name is B.C. Wehman. Over there in that box next to me, if you're watching live on YouTube, Dustin Kava. How you doing today, Dustin?
I'm doing amazing, actually. It's a beautiful week this week. I can't believe the weather we've had.
It has been pleasant. Are you a weather person? Do you get excited by the weather? Have you got to the age yet, Dustin? This is the most important thing I need to know. We'll talk to our guest today. He's getting a little older, getting some kids. Our guest today, Brian Adams, excited to speak with him. Are you to the point, Dustin, are you at the age where you now check the weather and plan your day accordingly based off how the weather's going to be?
No. Two things I look forward to. The first one is for rain, so I don't have to go to the playground. There's an excuse to not have to run and jump and climb for 4 hours.
Fair enough.
And then when I do get excited, man, it's taken me, I just moved into the house about a year and a half ago. I got 2 acres here and it needed some love the first year. And so it's taken me a long time to get this damn yard in place. So yeah, I've been watching the weather and knowing what I got to do. It's been crazy, but as of right now, it's beautiful, man. I am so blessed. I can't even believe I never would have expected to uncover what I did in this property. And it's been amazing.
Well, that is awesome here. It's exciting news. Change is good, Dustin. That's what I'm saying, right? Change is good for all those things. Thank you for joining me today, Dustin. I'm excited to introduce you. I've known our guest today for a pretty long time, actually. I actually said his name Tuesday. I say his name at the start of every class because he holds a special designation, in my opinion. And we'll meet our guest, Brian Adams, in just a moment. Hey, everyone, don't forget, if you are watching the show on YouTube right now, take your finger, take your mouse, click that subscribe button. Click that subscribe button. Do us a favor. Help out our show. We would appreciate the follow. Visit us, wayward.media, Wayward Media. A lot of great other podcasts hopefully coming very soon. Our guest today launching his own podcast. Everyone wants a microphone and wants to talk out loud, Dustin, these days, I tell you. Follow us socially at MEETWM, MEETWM, MEETWM. New shows every Friday, 4:20 p.m. on YouTube. And about 2 weeks later, you'll catch that same show on audio. So you can find us on Google Play, iTunes, Spotify. Pick your podcast. You know we got to throw in Stitcher. I always love Stitcher. Pick your podcast streaming source. No one uses fucking Stitcher. Pick your podcast streaming source of nature. We are on there. Check us out. I think our next guest is going to be available in a lot of those same places. He's actually our competition right now. I feel like he's going to be. And he's already got a little bit more of a following. So it makes me a bit nervous, but you should follow him because he's a hell of a guy. Brian Bino Adams of the Harrington Institute, Cleveland School of Cannabis, about to launch Blaze and Enthuse podcast. One of my favorite people on the planet who I get to see very irregularly. How the hell are you, Brian?
I'm good, man. Thank you for all the wonderful compliments. And I appreciate you too, man. Been working for a long time together on this cannabis educational circuit, man. It's been 5 years now, right? Five years,
right? We're rocking the 5-year anniversary. That is here. I'll show you my coffee mug right here. Brian's got that. We got some swag, Dustin. You missed the 5-year anniversary. A little shout out. I met Brian working at the Cleveland School of Cannabis. That reason I say his name is we just started our new term, and Brian holds a special designation. He is now, because the dominoes have fallen, the only person who's been at the Cleveland School of Cannabis longer than me. Brian, one of the first hires. They like headhunted you, Brian, right? You were working for, were you with Normal then or Sensible Cleveland? Like they found you at a meeting and were like, we need you to talk about cannabis. Tell me, and then we'll get into the other stuff. I can't remember. How did you meet or how did they recruit you to work at the Cleveland School of Cannabis?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting story. We met on Wayward Planet, your older show back in the day, and that link is still out there too. When we first sat down and had this conversation, but yeah, first of all, thank you all for having me, Dustin. Nice to meet you.
It really is a pleasure.
We were having an off mic conversation about your last name and how it means coffee, and I want some now.
Did you know Dustin is Czechoslovakian? Maybe you knew. I did not know. I had no clue. I've known Dustin a decade. I didn't bother to ask. Brian literally 5 minutes pregame lobby is like breaking down his lineage based off his last name. And I'm like, what is happening here? I just got replaced. That's what I felt like.
You know what I think it is? It's all those YouTube embedded ads. And I heard that word so many times sometimes, like ditch your coffee, get kava. Like, wait,
Yeah.
is that coffee though? so it was just fresh on my brain, and I'm 1 cup shy of my full capabilities today. But anyway, I was talking to you last time. You know, your listeners may know or may not about the journey into the Cleveland School of Cannabis, and it really started with advocacy. This show is an advocacy activism show, and it was right up my alley because cannabis to me connects on so many different levels. A lot of folks love to get high from it. To me, I do too, but it's a pleasant side effect to the actual greatness of the culmination of the multitude of abilities of this plant. So what I like to say is, it's a human rights issue. It's a racial justice issue. It's an environmental rights issue. For crying out loud, we're the greenest industry, but we're not green.
No.
Right?
Yes.
Think about that. Like,
Thank you.
We really need to get that together the way we, sustainably grow our cannabis, because right now it's forced to do what it's doing under the style of legislative efforts throughout the states. We got 38 states as we record this with medical cannabis, 19 states with adult use.
Shout out Rhode Island.
Just being the latest one, Rhode Island. Now I got a reason to go and test out my Peter Griffin voice. But I really tried to connect the dots when I was with NORML, and I'm gonna be honest with you, folks that don't know, NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, has been around since 1970. I got a chance to meet the founder, Keith Straub. He's still with us, still fighting hard. And yeah, back in the day, they got started with a big old Hugh Hefner check, $5,000 from the Playboy Foundation. Because as comical as that may seem, right? Think about weed back in the 70s, the stigma around it. It was a big hippie culture. But where else could you advertise marijuana?
Play for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So
they were getting a lot of their members coming from there, full page ads in Playboy. If you go back to your granddad's classic Playboy collection, you'll probably see some normal ads in there somewhere, full pagers. But yeah, just being an advocate for this, it really started in voter registration in 2008. I got really interested in the Obama campaign and made a song. You know the story. He ended up hearing my music and sent me an autographed copy of a typed of heartfelt message of sorts. And I would like to hope that he blazed one while he was listening to it. And you want to know how Obama smokes weed? And this is a telltale sign, and also a quote from the wonderful stoner comedy Next Friday. Because your lips turning black. I'm sorry, Bo. I'm sorry. But it's true. It's true. It's like when you smoke weed so much and you get down to the roach. Obama was hitting that roach. He was hitting that roach. My man has got the straight, and then you got great teeth and he's got the black lips, man. He's just hitting that blunt.
He's a good looking man.
Man. Oh yeah, definitely. Part of the Chum gang. He was also a regular smoker too, but he stopped smoking tobacco. I say regular smoker. Regular smoker to me is cannabis. But I won't do 20 of those a day, mind you. So like I said, voter registration was my main thing in 2008. It took 5 years later for me to join Cleveland NORML, so the regional chapter of that national group that I mentioned. So they're the longest standing consumer lobby group for cannabis consumer rights. So, we probably wouldn't have all these states that have legalization and decriminalization without NORML's efforts. They're continuing to work in DC, lobbying, petitioning, educating. And essentially that's what I was doing for a volunteer effort, y'all. Mm-hmm. So when Cleveland School of Cannabis in 2017, 4 years later, came in and said, hey, we want you to teach people about cannabis. And I'm like, wait, but you're going to pay me. I was doing it already for free. Yes. So it just goes to show you, and my biggest piece of advice to a lot of folks, you may ask us later, I don't know. If you ever get interested in getting into the cannabis industry specifically, or any industry, volunteer your time a little bit. People like the fact that you put in certain amount of clock hours without worrying about getting paid. Now, yes, being paid is essential, but when you put in so much work and have tunnel vision and do not look back by putting in all that work, and all you see is tire tracks when you finally look back, then the money just dumps on you. You get dollars dump on you because all that work you put in wasn't for naught. It finally paid off, right?
Well, and you do it for the right reasons. When I think of everything that's ever worked and all the businesses that I've successfully exited from and the ones that I didn't, the predominant difference in all of them was what the intention of money was. When I started, the most successful businesses that I had nothing to do with money. The profit meant nothing. And those are the businesses in which I was given the most back from. When I started businesses that was purely, I had, we thought about companies that we were going to make certain molds. They were $250,000 for the mold. The whole idea was, our return was going to be X amount. It was purely dollars. And you can't always, there has to be a reason for your why. You can't just get dollar bills in your account. In order to get dollar bills in your account, there's a purpose. What are you doing with it? What does it mean? What's the difference in your life? And it's that makes a lot of sense. You volunteer and you're establishing that openness to that. You're saying, I'm here because I love this. I want to help you because you deserve this. And then the universe in return, or, God, or whoever, whatever your situation is, gives it right back and says, yeah, you know what? Why don't I pay you to do this from now on? Or so it's amazing how that can happen.
You know what happens though sometimes in this industry, and I'm curious of either of you, because both of you have been around people who have not wanted to work in the cannabis industry, had normal jobs, and then ended up maybe working in the cannabis industry. Do you feel sometimes people miss the fun of it when they get into the job? Do you ever think about that, Brian, as you're talking with people and teaching them? Like, sometimes it is fun to consume it. It is fun to talk about it, maybe even volunteer your time. But when it becomes a job, when you have people now paying you and it becomes a thing you have to show up to every day, and you got to punch a clock and wear a uniform or put a name tag on, it's like a normal job. Have you seen that? Have you noticed people, whether they're volunteering and then they actually get in the industry and they're like, this isn't really all like cracked up to be? I feel like that has to happen more than we talk about.
I think it happens more in the actual industry jobs with
Yes.
all the rules and regulations and red tape, green tape, because they have to adhere to certain, guidelines based on their state's law. And that's what really, really makes it whack. I ain't gonna lie to you, man, because they don't let anyone who has a history with marijuana ever sit in the same room and make the rules about how to use marijuana.
There you go.
They always get a bunch of Poindexters in a room that have, been cannabis adjacent maybe, or kind of looking from through one of those double glass mirrors at you while you're smoking.
Or I think it's their wife is the one who's smoking. These are the nerds who are like, they can't. And their wife is the one in the bathroom like, I can't handle these fucking kids. And my husband is too big of a nerd to be able to anyways. So, yeah.
Exactly. So, honey, I noticed that you stopped lighting your incense.
Yes, yeah.
Is there any reason for that?
Exactly.
The smell is just, I'm like Ron DeSantis. The smell is, I can't breathe.
I think a secondary effect of this too is, and I've said this to BC a lot, it's this notion of either doing what you love or doing what you're good at. And a lot of times, one of the biggest things I preach about not doing what you love is that it very easily can become a job. You very easily, it can turn that thing, that hobby, into something else. Whereas I always thought if I continue just doing the things I'm very good at, the natural affinity for that, it's natural. There's no friction in what I'm doing. I'm not stressed about it. I'm not going against my grain. There's a fluidity in just doing what you're good at. And, if you just saw it as a sales job, I'm good at sales and I might as well sell cannabis as opposed to fucking teddy bears or something. Like it's one thing. It's another thing to love cannabis and feel like, oh, I need a job within the industry. I think I can do sales.
Right. Well, and that's a great point too. It boils down to the states, how they pass the laws, but you can still bring that same passion into the workplace and follow the rules. It just takes a lot more meditation, a lot more mental stability to do it. And a lot of folks leave because they're not able to do it. Now, this is when advocacy comes in.
That's what I was just going to say. You already learned that with the door knocking. You were told no, like millions of times before you got the 2 yeses. It's like to get told by a state, no, you're like, that's just a door, man. I'm going to knock on the door next week too, is when your adult's home,
Yes.
And it's like,
when the decision makers are home.
Yeah. The decision maker.
At what point though, do you, man, I mean, like with your advocacy, a lot of that is education, you're saying this is why I think this should be an option, or there's a lot of like, I didn't know that. That's why I'm going to listen to you right now. Is there ever a point when advocacy isn't, education? There isn't that formal introduction like that, where it feels more forced? I don't know how to explain that question. I've got to think about that for a second. BC, why don't you?
Yeah.
I think there is this notion of a softer spoken, almost like you're a parent or a teacher just informing someone. And when I hear the word advocacy, I think of bullhorn, I think of the shouting into the crowd, and you're winning ears that way. And it's not so much this one-on-one situation, or it's this, it seems less community and more shout. And I'm curious where do you see the difference in it? And
I love that that you're attempting to make the distinction here, because there is one. There is a spectrum to this. Advocacy, to me, is the opposite of what you're saying. Advocacy is sitting down with your lawmakers, is playing by the rules, is trying to make the laws advance according to how the system at hand has already been laid out. Activism is when you get up and see advocacy. You advocate for something from a distance.
Yeah,
You're not even putting the bumper sticker on your car if you're an advocate at the time. Activism, that's the bullhorn, because they're actively shouting at you. Yeah. They're up in your face. They are marching. And you know why that's the second level? And I come from both realms. I got to consider myself kind of tapering the line of both at all times. But advocacy does not work all the time. We just put Grandpa Joe into office. Somebody please raise the point size on his teleprompter. He is very squinty. We just put him in office, your granddaddy, not mine. And basically what he did, the first order of business, instead of decriminalizing cannabis like him and Kamala Harris said she was going to do, they fired White House staffers instead. So, advocacy got him in there. Activism is going to hold him accountable.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the way you word that. Do you have a preference, Brian, that you like? Like, do you like working behind the scenes, or do you like, I'm going to guess you like activism more, but which one are you more drawn towards? Like being behind the scenes and massaging it and getting things to happen, or because you are a comfortable, confident speaker, being out there with the group, with the bullhorn and, collecting signatures and, those things. Do you have a preference?
I like both. However, it's kind of like the Super Saiyan mode. You've got to turn one on when it's necessary. You got to bleach blonde your hair and hit somebody with
the mama bear comes out. The papa bear parent comes out, and it's saying, it's roar. You're going to change this because you're hurting the people I love, and it's a different thing. It's not like I'm teaching you how to talk to your children necessarily about how to speak about cannabis. I'm saying families are physically being separated because of the way you're viewing this, or it's mama bear to me.
To answer your question, BC, though, I'd rather play the background. I'd rather not have to yell and scream and hoot and holler and march. Honestly, I do like the marijuana march, because it's basically a public smoke out. I will continue to attend those once we bring them back. We used to do those with the Cleveland School, not the Cleveland School, but Cleveland Normal. Cleveland Normal actually used to host almost 20 of these things. Since 1999, we hosted one of the largest protests. It was called the Cleveland Global Marijuana March. And that's when we literally marched around the Injustice Center. Some folks call it the Justice Center downtown in Cleveland, for cannabis rights, cannabis freedom. I literally marched one year, and my guy, and when I say my guy, people who buy weed know what I'm talking about, was locked up. He said, I heard y'all. Next year he got out, he marched with us. So that's what activism gets you. Advocacy, you don't even know who you're touching. You don't know who you're affecting per se all the time. Activism, you're right out there in the trenches and you see them folks. You're one in arms with them. And it's just a beautiful thing. It's nothing compares to your heart beating in the moment being out there. But I'd rather play the background with two daughters now, and but I still get out there when I have to. I just went down to the State House for 420. A lot of folks like getting blazed on 420. I spent my time talking to lawmakers, trying to make places for us to blaze on 420.
Oh, what was that like? Tell me about that. I knew you went down there. I haven't really heard about it. What was it like to go down there, and what is it like to sit with these politicians and stuff and talk about it? Because I don't feel like they're super interested in advancing it forward. They want to hear you and they want to listen. When you're in those rooms, how is it down there in that setting?
Well, in my opinion, speaking from the fresh session we just had a few months ago at the time of this recording, there are some lawmakers that are receptive to the cannabis message. And there's a wonderful resource out there. I'm not sure if your listeners are hip to this, but it's from Headcount, a wonderful voter registration group that's been around for a long time. I've actually volunteered for them and been involved with them on the Ohio side of things. But headcount.org or simply Headcount, there's a division of their group called Cannabis Voter Project. And if you haven't heard of this, Google it, Cannabis Voter Project, or just simply go to cannabisvoter.info, right? They don't pay me, but they probably should because I talk about them so much. I should probably pay you, BC, at this point because you talk about me a decent amount here, apparently. I think you got to get on the commission track now. But Headcount started this brilliant subdivision of their voter registration outlet, which still, they do the voter registration through this website. But what this website does is show you who is talking that cannabis talk and who is not talking the same language as you. For instance, the senators in our state, Rob Portman, Sherrod Brown, right? We're talking about the state of Ohio, folks. Sherrod Brown has voted 6 out of 7 times on pending cannabis laws, on proposed bills. He's voted yes in his capacity 6 out of 7 times. Not mad at your boy. He will get my vote next time. Portman, on the other hand, Mr. Big Pharma himself, with that he getting them fentanyl checks. He cashing them fentanyl.
He's cashing them fentanyl checks. That is a wonderful statement.
He going out to the mailbox. He getting them royalty.
He's got them fentanyl. That's an amazing line. I feel that's a great line.
That basically says all I need to say about his stance on cannabis. He's 0 for 7 on all 7 issues that were at hand on this website. So if you look at this website, they really break down, and you put in where you live and your state, they break down who's talking what. I really love it. And the fact of the matter is there are a lot of folks now, not like before. We talked about the 70s earlier. It was political suicide to admit cannabis use in the 70s, mid to late 70s, the 80s, the 90s, political suicide. Even early 2000s. But Obama said, I inhaled. That was the point. And that kind of broke that down for the executive branch before, Bill Clinton with his, I didn't inhale and I didn't like it. Well, you didn't do it right. You didn't do it right. And you're lying. You didn't have sexual relationships with that woman and you didn't like it. Got it. Okay. But he's like, I let it happen, but I didn't like it. I'll tell you what.
That's how we all do it. Isn't that how it's like normal life? Like, just fall into it sometimes. You just fall down. Like, oh, sorry about that. Sorry, we just fell in you.
Oh my God. So to kind of put a pin on this in this question, I wanted to say that shout out to certain reps in the state of Ohio. Here's the difference between the ones that support it and the ones that don't. The ones that don't, Huffman, I'm looking at you. Right up in their face, they'll sit there and tell you, we're not going to do it. And if we do it, this is how it's going to go, right? So I almost appreciate that honesty more than Casey Weinstein and Terrence Upchurch. These are 2 representatives that have proposed this legislation that basically copy and pastes the effort from the Ohio Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. So there was a group trying to make the ballot this year. These lawmakers stepped in, almost essentially copied and pasted their language, and then said, hey, look what we did. We introduced something too. So the ones that are about it, they rather get the credit for doing it themselves than help what's already been out there from the community. And the ones that aren't about it will just flat out tell you to your face. Yeah. So that's what I'm learning here in Ohio with these representatives. And it's also one of those telltale signs of our national politics scheme as well. If you look at Chuck Schumer, he's we want to get this thing done and make it the most equitable thing. But right there, safe banking is on the table. Right there, the MORE Act's been sitting on the table. The CARES Act was introduced by Cory Booker so many years ago. The Marijuana Justice Act. All this stuff is sitting on the table, and you're the majority leader now. Like so there's no reason why you can't just pick up one of those and just put it into effect he wants the credit. His Cannabis Administrative Opportunity Act, or whatever the hell it is, CAOA, cacao, whatever he.
Yeah, we went through them. There's a lot of them that we're going through, but yeah.
It's like, my dude, just pick one and support it and make it happen. You can introduce this. He doesn't want to introduce something that he didn't create himself. And that's just my personal opinion about the situation. And that's why we can't get anything done. So voting is a good thing to do, to vote these people in, but you got to vote these schmucks out if they're not doing what you ask them to do in general. And then you got to continue to hold them accountable after you vote. It only starts with voting, right? Roe v. Wade was never a protection for abortion. It was a court ruling that, because no other law existed on the books, people took as face value to say you are constitutionally protected, and technically you were, because of the judicial decision that happened in the late 70s. So the reason why it was so easy to overturn and the leak notwithstanding was because it was never codified, y'all. It was never a legislative effort. They never protected it. Somebody put it on the table, said, hey, in my humble opinion as a judge, I think the woman should have the right to choose. Okay, now put that into law. They never did that. They never did that. And that's why it's so easy to overturn.
Well, and to be honest, the vast majority of the decisions made by them are done the same way. Very, very few go to that extreme or get put into that category of this is now an amendment. This is now something else. This is a lot harder. That's so then for someone who, when I think about you knocking on doors and getting told no, and then going into a teaching position at the Cleveland School of Cannabis, I mean, there's a difference there. The whole energy level of the people you're talking to and the reasons that you're talking to them. Was it a harder transition, or was it the light bulbs that you still were seeing light bulbs going off in the heads, and you still were able to voice your opinion on very important things into people who were going to be into the industry, people who, you really are kind of molding and shaping people at a very early stage in their career here, and
an influential stage too, a very influential stage, because they're excited to get the job, and they're like, you're telling them information, and what you say could affect how they then represent this industry, right? It feels like a pressure sometimes.
Oh yeah. No, it's a great question, and BC can attest to this too, I'm sure. Yeah,
so I get a little nervous sometimes. Like, you got to measure your words. I take a lot of great power, great responsibility, Spider-Man level shit with that. Like, just really, like, there's some pressure to that. And now, I want to hear your opinion, Brian. But now, as we go from there, and then we'll talk about what you're doing with the Harrington Institute. I mean, that is even more pressure to mold and shape future leaders.
Absolutely. And this is a privilege. This is a privilege. I would have probably kept doing this for free from Cleveland Normal if they didn't offer me, the way to live. We love our passions, and if we're able to make money off of it, well, hell, that's amazing. You never work a day in your life. And as far as the knocking on the doors and the stuff like that goes, I've been on many petitioning committees. I've collected signatures for a multitude of issues and signed my fair share of issues as well, or causes. But I was blessed to have come out of the cannabis closet in the year 2013, right? So that is literally right at the same time when Colorado's getting ready to open their doors. It's a year after the law went into pretty much passed, but they didn't open the dispensary doors until 2014, as some of you may know. January 2014. Got way ahead of Washington State and never looked back. I've never visited Colorado, but I have visited Washington State, and it's pretty good stuff out there. I have visited California, LA, as well. But just to let you know that the demographic of person who supports cannabis nowadays way higher than it used to be. So it's like a 70-30 kind of thing at this point. There's still 30% of naive, ignorant, blissful beings out there. Blissful beings out there. But those are the ones we're not trying to convert them. what we're trying to do with them, and this is the major key that a lot of people get bent out of shape on, because, oh no, he didn't like me. Oh, he didn't sign my signature. He didn't sign my petition. You know, many volunteers, students, colleagues, folks that went out with me, and I'm training them and stuff like that. They get discouraged when somebody says, no, I'm okay. But see, the thing is, if you're able to get them to take some time to ponder the decision that they may or may not make, is good enough to get that ball rolling. A year from now, that person may sign that signature. So, you know, we I always say, I'm saying that sign that signature, sign that petition. We get bent out of shape when we get that rejection, right? We want that instant gratification, and that's anything but what happens in activism. There is no instant gratification.
And a lot of things come in that power of threes. 3 times to get a loyal customer, 3 times of hearing something to remember it. 3, so it takes them hearing it from you, going to a party, hearing someone else talking about it, and then hearing their mom argue against it too, because she saw everybody out in front of the bank or some shit, Right. And it's multiple times. It's that digestion period to see what resonates. I mean, not everybody is so in tune with themselves that they flat out can say yes or no immediately. Mm-hmm. Or if they are, they're certainly not giving you their honest. They're not seeing whether their disposition has some type of other reasoning behind it, or if they really are against something, That's right. I think it gives them time to drop the act a little bit and really make the decision themselves. It's not because you were enthusiastic. It's because it makes sense for my community. And right. I don't know. That's awesome.
It doesn't make sense to a lot of people still. It still does not make sense to a lot of folks, especially older generation. Despite them being the ever more increasing demographic of consumers, they are having a slower time because they grew up in prime time reefer madness, 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. All those decades, I think, had their own version of reefer madness. If you start with Anslinger in the 30s and through the 40s and 50s, Anslinger had 20 years, 30 years of his own terror that he brought. But then you had Nixon's version, and then you had Reagan's version, then you had Billy Clinton's version. I'll respect these people and call them president and congressional and Mr. and Sir when they respect our democracy. So I make fun pet names for them all the time, as you notice, Grandpa Joe and them. So yeah, when they start respecting our democracy, then we'll give Kamala a bone. But,
we're not too far though. I think about it. I'm almost 50, right? So I'm almost 50, and I would say if I had
you look good, man.
Thank you for that. If I had my indoctrination, it'd probably be the Reagan era. That would be my just say no. When I think of anti-drug campaign, I go to just say no, just based off my age. I grew up in that influential. I would have been 74. So I would have been 6 to 16 during the 80s, during the just say no stuff. So, but in my age group, in about 20 years from now, I think we'll be much more comfortable. So in about 30 years, and I know I may not be around or so, but in about 30 years, all that is gone. The older generation is pretty much from the 90s and beyond. And they're all into, at some point, everyone, past 96, legalization in California, it's going to be very, very normalized. We're only 2 decades away. I know that's a long time, but we're only 2 decades away from having generational shrug emojis on cannabis, because it's just going to be very normalized. It's going to be your kids, Brian, you got 2 young daughters, you're going to grow up in an era when it's perfectly normal, right? I mean, they're babies now. So, but give it another 10 years when they're teenagers, look at where we'll probably be in 10 years. I'm sure we'll have some sort of decriminalized effort, if not federal legalization. We'll definitely have more states be legalized. So it's going to seem like, and it just like in every other state that's legal, just a giant green shrug emoji. All right, whatever. Absolutely. So we're not that far from it. We're not that far from that going away, which I'm excited to see. And I think we're getting closer to there, but we're really not that far from aging out of any sort of reefer madness.
We're not far from it, but at the same point, there's still a hell of a lot of cities and states that are, again, separating families from their parents because of something like this. There's still a lot of other charges that are getting brought up just because this is even a smell in the car. There's custody battles that are still being lost just because someone's medicating with it. And that affects more a longer generation than the generation who's, than 20 years of everybody's shrugging right now. You will have children who it will take them even longer than that to fix the damage that has been caused from it. And so even though it's happening quick, and when I can think of my DARE times, it was never going to happen when I was in school, like this is it was fuck you. If you think this is going to happen nationwide, you're crazy. And it'll never happen in your lifetime to now it's going to happen in the next 2 generations or 2 decades. It's still heartbreaking to me because in my mind, I'm still thinking another 500,000 families have to be hurt over this. Another, it's a larger issue.
People still being arrested for common, possession of, like, we're talking grams and stuff like that. I think, and it's not something I always think about. So that's why I love having the conversation with Brian, and something I have been more in tuned and aware with. We talk about generational change. We've talked about this before on the show. It is a bunch of people running the industry now. It's a bunch of old white dudes into there, but we're trying to get more demographics, more representation. And so Brian went from teaching, right, and now up into working as, I don't know, what's your exact title, the Director of Education? I don't know your exact title. Director of Education for the Harrington Institute, which is kind of an offshoot of the Cleveland School of Cannabis. Talk to me about the Harrington Institute. I mean, I know what it's about, but I don't. We haven't really chatted about it.
I would love to hear
but
it.
Dustin doesn't really know anything about it. Yeah, so let's talk about. I want to talk about the Harrington Institute and your Blazing Through podcast as well. But just talk about why it exists, and we'll put all these links to Headcount and all these other places in the YouTube description below. Just talk about the Harrington Institute, and I think it's been really fun to work there and having a different viewpoint. I've been educated because of who I am, an older white dude. And so to have, and I'll let Brian explain what it is, to have conversations outside of my norm have been good for me. I mean, I'm being honest. It's been a refreshing thing being there.
That's beautiful to hear you say. And I was going to say, a little bit about what's going on. You're an instructor doing the commercial cultivation operations course, as you do with Cleveland School of Cannabis as well. But this is our last interaction, or our last question that we just had is a wonderful segue to this, because the people that are mostly getting arrested are Black and brown people, right? The people that are mostly losing their children, Black and brown folks. Let's just be real. There's mostly Black.
Yes, but we're not just saying mostly. We're saying 80% to 20%.
Yeah, it's not. It's mostly being mostly. It's like 85%.
It's fucking outrageously. It's disgusting.
Absolutely, and that's another reason.
And you're in Columbus, right? The Institute's in Columbus, right?
Yeah, they're headquartered in Columbus.
You do nationwide the classes.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So and Columbus, I thought the fucking figures last year were astronomical. I thought Columbus was like, I thought that it was just absurd. 70% compared to the 30%. Like,
oh yeah. Ohio as a state, or a state average, and it's a county by county thing too. Certain counties, your Black folks are 12 times, 18 times more likely to get arrested for cannabis possession than our white counterparts, even though I might have bought the weed from BC. But the thing is, we both use at similar rates on average, but I'm the one that's getting in handcuffs, essentially. Yeah. And I actually seen this play out in my real life in Solon, Ohio, of all places. No, I shouldn't have my Black ass there, but I was working, so I had to have my Black ass there. But so in Solon, Ohio, get tried or detained, like handcuffed and detained for a little thing of weed that I got from my white friend who gifted it to me. What made this bad? This is the worst cop racially motivated interaction I've ever had. I was able to walk away and go home, and I'm glad I have my life and stuff like that. But I was humiliated in front of the entire staff of the bar, who was all white except me. And I was a dishwasher. And, this is way back in like 2006, 2007. And so I got the weed from a white friend, and they confiscated, they take it. And he comes out and he knocks on the window while I'm cuffed, sitting, waiting to be brought home. Hey, you all right in there? He's like, literally, this guy is the one who gave me the weed. He's high as you all get out. He's reeking of alcohol. It's after hours. We shouldn't even been at the bar still. It was like 4 a.m. We were still there drinking and, messing around and smoking. And I literally just get through smoking with the guy. And then I'm getting ready to leave home and go home. Obviously, I probably shouldn't have been getting behind the wheel, but getting ready to go home and do my thing. But he's literally like, hey, you okay in there, bud? I'm like, can you tell them to get me out of here? Can we use your white privilege effectively instead of for comic relief?
Instead of for comic relief. Damn it, that's my card though. That's how I use it. That's my specialty. Don't blow up my game, Brian.
My bad.
That's my whole white privilege shtick is comic relief. Damn it.
No, well, it works if that's your thing in a digital format, but in real life, buddy, help me.
No way. I saw it even at Inhalables. The only time that a cop would stay in the parking lot and wait till the person got to their car out of my shop was if they were black. The only time that me and Calvin, one of the most brilliant fucking employees we ever could have had, but any time that we would go and shoot in a park, shoot photos of product in a park, 2 fucking cops would come and check on us every fucking time. There were times when I would walk through a fucking park with a 4-foot water pipe and families all around. Not one officer would come. Calvin and I would walk out with a fucking camera and 2 cops would come. And it's so fucking blatant anymore. It was blatant to the point where it was now, there has to be more done. For me, nothing was going to change unless me and my business partner fucking did something about it. Unless me and my business partner walked out and said, you aren't going to fucking do this anymore. You know, like, I will fucking film you every day. I will, whatever I have to do to get this to stop, it better stop, because it doesn't make sense. And the way you're doing it is just fucking blatant, you know? And it's just, there's something about that just says 2 decades is a lot fucking, it's going to take a lot longer to get that shit out of the force than what it is to get the fucking public perception of this shit. And that to me is what makes me the most sick in all of this, you know? That's what the Harrington Institute, you mentioned that it segued into that. How does the Harrington Institute, you know, represent something like that?
So basically what Al Harrington, former NBA All-Star, used to play for Pacers, Nuggets, other teams, decided, and also, by the way, he's the largest Black-owned multi-state operator in cannabis, Viola Brands. If you've ever heard of Viola Brands, that's Al Harrington. And he decided to take his celebrity, his expertise in the field, and, you know, his own struggles, and bring that to the forefront of education, and using Cleveland School of Cannabis as an outlet, literally, because the Harrington Institute is being powered by the Cleveland School of Cannabis. So we're all, you know, Harrington is just a light bulb that is powered by that filament from CSC. We have many different channels, if you will. We have the Harrington Institute, which is a virtual classroom setting. We want to spend some time talking about right now. Basically, we allow our target audience is Black and brown people with this educational effort, because those are the folks that are mostly shunned from working in cannabis. Those are the folks that are mostly miseducated about cannabis. Those are the folks where their conservative church-going Black families told them, you better not get caught with no cannabis. You see what I'm saying? And that reefer madness in a Black family, I think, is in a different level, because you think that your parents or your grandparents are against your lifestyle and they don't want to hear you out and this and that, but they're just trying to protect you. They're literally just saying, don't do that, because they're expecting you to. And that's where that came from. I didn't quite understand that at first. And my grandmother, rest her soul, she passed away to start this year off in January. My grandmother on my mother's side. We love you, Mary. But basically, she was one of those ones that guarded us with her life and didn't want any sort of normalcy to escape our bubble, our literal bubble that we lived in. We were allowed to get on our bikes and go to the end of the driveway and come back. It's kind of like that. Like that was our growing up at a certain age. And then when we got older, we could go up the street.
Every year you get one more driveway down the road. Yep,
you get another square foot. And as long as I can see you, you know, basically is what it was. But I appreciate that, because I may or may not have been here if it wasn't for that level of protection growing up on the east side of Cleveland, Kinsman Road. I lived on Kinsman, Miles, Harvard, before I ended up moving to the west side of Cleveland here where I am now, which honestly, ain't any better.
Well,
I'm not in a suburb by any means.
I certainly don't just picture it being just your grandma. I picture her having eyes 5 houses down from the neighbor. Across the street, she had another neighbor lady that she played bridge with or something.
Oh yeah,
with, you know,
spades. Her game spades.
And you know, like I think that like back then it was this is a neighborhood effort. We are all parenting our children together. We're all, you know, and then I don't really see that in the developments anymore. You know, I see a lot more keeping to yourselves almost for fear of something like that anymore. Fear of that closeness.
Yeah, true indeed.
I would say it is different for sure. All right. So we'd be remiss, Brian. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on is you are, as I said in the very beginning, about to be our competition, essentially. You know, you have flirted around. We talked about on the previous episode of Wayward Playing about your music production and some of these other things. Obviously, you got the nice setup. You got the little mic flag, by the way. Like, good for you. Mic flag with the B&E logo. So you've been sitting on this, by the way. I think you've been holding on to this title for some time. It's had its ebbs and flows. So Blazed and Enthused, the podcast, is about to come back. It's about to launch 7/10. So that's what's today? 7/8 when this recording goes live on 4/20 on Friday on our channel. Subscribe, by the way. So a couple days from now, you're launching a brand new podcast. Talk about Blaze and Enthuse. What's your goal? What's this newest iteration of the Blaze and Enthuse podcast? Talk about it. Tell them about your Patreon. We'll put a link, by the way, below to the Patreon as well. Talk about what you want to do that's better than this. Like, why? You already have this. You have because cannabis. Why do you need anything else?
Well, you know, I will say this: the one of the unique attributes to the cannabis industry is the fact that we are communal hippies. We like to live together. We like to smoke together. We like to bathe together sometimes. But
I don't know about bathe together. Smoke together.
Well, no, I said bathe.
Oh, bathe together. Oh, that's even worse. Hold on a second. Yeah, no.
Well, no, we did. As hippies, there was a certain lifestyle. We're very comfortable with ourselves, is the point.
Yes.
Back that level of hippie. We are all on a different spectrum of hippiedom, quite frankly. But we are all hippies nonetheless, and possess that same spirit. So with cannabis, I think we can use each other as outlets, as just another mechanism to continue to spread the word, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. I can't wait to have another cannabis podcast in my Rolodex. I listen to like 5 of them per day. Well, I used to, because I've caught up with every single episode of every podcast that I've ever listened to, and now I wait for them to come out fresh. Now I've been such a junkie on podcasts, but I don't see myself as a competition. I know you say that affectionately and
affectionately, of course.
Lovingly.
I'm looking forward to subscribing and following Blaze and Enthused.
Yeah, Blaze and Enthused is just essentially, and I'm gonna break it down in 3 words: news, reviews, and interviews. Essentially, what we're going to do is provide my irreverent takes on the latest cannabis news, and we're a bi-weekly podcast. I like to call us an interactive show because I am going to be blazing and enthusiastic about many things during the course of the show because I am a cannabis patient here in Ohio. My qualifying condition is sickle cell anemia. So we're going to have segments that when we start the show, I'm going to pick an article of interest and say, hey, this is what caught my eye this week. I want y'all to learn about this and how I understood it, you know, how I comprehended it. Hit me up if you have a different opinion, and so on and so forth. We're also going to talk about what I'm blazing, so the article is what I'm enthusiastic about, right? What I'm blazing is going to be my product for the week. So this week I was using, shout out to Certified Cultivators. It's gone. So that's Apple Slaps.
Apple Slaps. Talk to me about Apple Slaps. I'm not familiar with this cultivar. What is the Apple Slaps roll? Let's break down some terpene contents here.
So you heard it here first on Because Cannabis. This is a preview of what Blazed and Enthused is going to actually be about. This week I'm blazing Apple Slaps Shake. And the lineage on this one, according to Certified Cultivators here in Ohio, is Apple Fritter and Sherb and Kush Mints. So all 3 of those. I love Sherbert, by the way. Sherbert is one of my favorite all-time strains. That and OG Kush, of course. But OG Kush is just a wonderful base strain for almost everything.
It's like I don't know. It's like water. I don't mean that in a negative thing. It's like you can have it anytime. It's always good. It's there for you. You know, it's just a basic essential necessity of cannabis. That's what it's like water. It's the basics of all that you need. If you can't have anything else, just have OG Kush, right? If you can't have anything else, drink water.
And you need that OG Kush water to make all your other fruity drinks and fun coffees.
Yes, right?
You need the water. You got to start with the water.
Here's the base level, and then everything else adds flavor and stuff on top of it. Yeah, it's just an essential.
So Apple Slaps. This is all shake, by the way. I just bought all shake because I'm cheap, but it's a half ounce of shake. It's certified cultivators. It is expensive.
Yeah, I'm a patient, and I end up buying like the popcorn or the shake.
I find it weird that Brian, of all people, right? Brian, I believe his cannabis card, if you want like your man card, his cannabis card is full. No one's gonna call out your resume when it comes to the cannabis industry, but still, Brian Adams here had to justify like, I had to buy shake. I think that's a weird. I get bothered by it. We have this conversation in class and other people. Some people get weird about people that buy like a shake is for loser. I'm like, why? It's already ground up. It's cheaper. Like, why?
No,
it's
check
a weird
it out.
thing you got to defend yourself on.
Not necessarily, because the people who used to buy shake bought it off the streets back then. So that's why they have a weird perception. That's why they look at it like, oh, that's Sniggle Fritz.
All right.
What you doing with that? But guess what? This Apple Slaps tested out at 23% THC. So not too bad.
Your brown frown on the street is not testing out at that.
Yeah, it's not testing at all. They're not testing it at all, quite frankly. And it came from one of my orifices.
yeah, it's not.
So I got a whole other terpene profile on that one.
So Blaze and Enthuse, we're going to give some news. We're going to blaze up a little bit. That'll be fun to watch you get a little stoned. I've been stoned with Brian. It's a trip. So that'll be fun. It's
I'm a patient, so I'll grab the same strain, man, and I'll snap back one during an episode.
Now we're going to join the show. Blaze and Enthuse, where can they find out? Like, what kind of format are you rocking for the show? Is it audio only, video? What are you doing?
So right now it's audio only. And by the way, the terpene content on that Apple Slaps, just for the listeners that were like, hey, you didn't say the terps. Limonene, myrcene, caryophyllene, linalool. So mostly limonene, our citrus flavor. Lord have myrcene. That's the most dominant terpene in all cannabis. That's our skunky, earthy essence. If it was Captain Planet, he would be the black guy. Earth. Caryophyllene.
What a deep pull. Holy shit. I can't believe you just pulled the black guy from Captain Planet. Wow.
Yes. Hey, guess what? I hate to be stereotypical, but you know he had the weed.
He's Captain Planet. Like, he literally grows it. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the black guy. He was Earth. He is Earth. So anyway, I'm sorry, off track. So that's the earthy terpene. Then you got caryophyllene, which is our spicy kind of peppery terpene, and then linalool, a little flower essence for you, a little bit of lavender. So that's what I'm blazing on. Vaping, of course, according to Ohio State guidelines.
Vaping, of course.
But it's still a blaze. It's still a blaze.
It still is a blaze. I'm not as big a fan of the vaporization. I know that's our law here, but I don't like vaporizing dry herb. I don't know. It's not for me. I don't know. I just don't enjoy it.
Nope. I know. And I'm going to be using cannabis products on my show. Maybe an hour before the show, I'll use an edible and say, hey, I already tried an edible. Let's see what happens by the end of this show and see how I'm acting. My words get slurring and whatnot.
Did you guys ever watch? There was a Netflix cooking show once that was out for a little bit.
Cooking on High.
Was it?
Cooking on High.
Is that the one that had Ramon Rivera on there as a comedian? And what they would do is make it, and then at the end of the show, they made these fancy infused dishes. They would have a cut edit and transfer to like an hour and a half later and show them all kind of messed up. Do you remember this show?
No, that's not the same show I'm thinking about.
It's not the same show. This was one. It had like comedians and it had like rappers and like guest stars that would
never check that out.
Like a panel.
I know Ramon Rivas. He's a Cleveland comedian.
He is a Cleveland comedian. That's how he learned about the show, because he moved out to LA and was on it. So so they went on there and they would make these fancy dishes. But I loved it that they went and showed him an hour later, and they'd all be sitting in on couches and they were just goofing and being silly and stuff like that. So I like that aspect because that's the thing with you. I've watched reviews and they eat edibles on the air, and I'm like, well, I got to wait 60 minutes before it comes up there. So I like the concept.
2 hours for me. I got to my system takes the full 2 hours.
I would imagine you have some tolerance built up. Do you ever take any breaks to reset?
No, I don't, because I'm gonna tell you all the trains. No, seriously.
I don't know why I love that. I really don't know.
Question. Why is that so funny?
Right.
Why is that making you laugh, Dustin? I don't understand
why he was laughing from that. I do want to hear that.
Yeah, I need to know why Dustin's laughing before Brian answers his question. Why is that? I thought that was a pretty honest question. I thought that was a legit answer. Dustin's ragging on my fucking questions here. The show is rambling apart in the last 6 minutes. Dustin, why is that funny? Oh,
I don't know. I really loved his response to that. It just was, it just was genuine.
I answered so quickly.
yeah, no, it was very clear that it was like it was literally like, why are you asking me that? Like, I'm offended that you would ask me that question. That's what I felt like. Like, your eyes were like, what the fuck, dude? No.
Well, kind of. But you know what I'll say? And it's not that obvious for certain people. You keep first of all, you got to keep your tolerance in check ongoing. There should be no reason why you smoke so damn much that you need to quit for a month. This is my wellness product. This is my medication. A lot of folks use supplements every day. Let's be real. You popping a supplement every single day. Cannabis is a supplement. It's vitamin C, baby. Come on now. Vitamin cannabis. Let's get it in your life. Let's talk about it to the wife. Let's talk about it to the grandma. Let's talk about it to everybody. So basically what you do is you use cannabis with a more vast cannabinoid profile. You don't just bake your receptors out whack-a-mole style with all that THC all the time.
Well, and
that's
guess
what? Like whack-a-mole, the receptor's gonna be like, don't hit me no more. Don't hit me no more. Literally, that's why I use that analogy, because you shock your receptors into hiding that you smoke so much. I don't do that because when I'm using, first of all, I use mostly CBD before bed. That's a old school trick. Use your CBD dominant stuff closer to bed. I'm talking about an hour before bedtime, 2 hours before bedtime. Stop all that THC.
That's right.
If you're going to use THC, switch the ratio. Right.
Well, and as an Ohio patient, the ABV, that's when I would pull out the already vaped stuff because of the higher CBD content. That's what was left in there.
And CBN.
Yes.
Right? So you can get a good night's sleep. You're not going to get a good night's sleep off THC, folks. I don't know why people keep thinking that. Right? It may knock you out sleep, but knockout sleep ain't restful sleep, baby.
It's the CBN. I love the CBN.
It's the CBD too, because it relaxes your body. CBD works on your cannabinoid receptor levels in the body mostly. THC works on those receptors in the brain. So that's why you probably won't even get any sleep, because you're all thinking about how to make money and the latest thing, and you're logging into the Patreon and trying to cash a check, and so I gotta get the kids breakfast ready tomorrow, and so using a whole bunch of THC before bed is not going to do it. You got to use CBD, CBN, CBC, CBG. I would love to call this, rename this network to CBC. This is the CBC.
I just realized I'm doing it all wrong. I didn't know all this. Like I'm learning. I feel like I always learn when I talk to you, Brian. I'm learning this again. Like, so really, you're saying we should not go THC heavy before bedtime. Go CBD heavy before bed.
I'm not saying eliminate it completely if that's your thing, but you know what I'm about to do before bed? This is my dessert tonight.
I love them. They're awesome.
Yep.
Blue Planet chocolates.
Blue Planet.
Yep. We got Joel Fink coming on the show soon.
Oh, nice.
Joel Fink will be on for Blue Planet chocolate. Yeah, I had one of those. I think we talked about it when I had one. His stuff, we picked it up at at Hemp Day that we had at the Cleveland School of Cannabis. I did talk about it because we had Alex Huska on a couple weeks ago as well.
Oh, nice.
From talking about that. But yeah,
I'm going to have Alex on Blazing Enthused too. So
there you go. Alex, a great guy. Blue Planet chocolate, if you haven't checked him out, great quality product there, but he's making some top-notch hemp-derived products out there. His sleep time bar with CBN, valerian root, and CBD, like, shut the front door. It
tastes amazing. It's not
chocolates.
They don't pay y'all, but they should.
No, it's good stuff.
That was a straight up ad. That was
straight up. That's what I'm working on. I figure if we just keep talking about people, and maybe one of them, will be like, "Hey, we like you. We'll pay for you." I haven't really gone the Patreon route. I haven't figured that out yet. I like that you rolled out your Patreon from launch. You're like, here it is. Throw out the Patreon. Be sure to check it out. We'll put a link in the YouTube comments below. Click that out. Support Blazing Enthuse and what Brian Adams has going on. Wrapping up here, Dustin. We got to wrap up here soon. Any other things? I feel like we're just getting started. I literally feel like we're just getting started our conversation. So obviously, Brian, I hope you get to come back on. We'll come on Blazing Enthuse. Hint, hint. We'll come on and join with you. Anything else, Dustin, for today? Like, there's so much, but there's also not enough time.
It's amazing that we just got up to the present. Like
we're literally caught up with where I had these news articles I was going to talk about and stuff like that. But yeah, we just took this whole time. Part of it's because Dustin needed to get to know you, which I'm still shocked you two haven't run into each other before. Dustin needed to get to know you a little bit. And as I told Dustin before we hit record, I'm not worried. Brian's going to talk. Like some guests, you don't know if they're going to talk, and you got to talk a lot. I had zero fear. In fact, you're kind of like some of the guests where I don't get to talk enough. It's not going to be too much of you.
I'm so sorry.
Too much of you, not enough of me. I'm a little bit of a, that kind of person. But
you know what though? I talk so much sometimes. I don't know if the cotton mouth is from the bud or from me just talking so much. Like, you ever been there?
Oh, exactly. All the time. 100% all the time. I get cotton mouth mostly because I'm just talking all the time and I don't like swallow. I get like little saliva built up just because I don't shut up and do those things. What are you going to do? That's why we do this, Brian. That's why we decided, hey, let's pick up a microphone and talk, because cannabis on Wayward Media, or in your case, Blaze and Enthused, the educational part of it, all those things. Brian Adams, it is... I really like talking to you. I don't know. I've always liked talking to you. You're someone who I ran into, like I said, you were there just before me. I've known you for a long time. I haven't seen you that much. We've had some interesting adventures in some way, shapes, or form. My Chipotle story is my favorite. Tease that for another day, people. But it's been great. And you are authentic. If I had to pick one word to describe you, like that's where I describe you. You have so much knowledge and so much deep thought. I didn't even talk about Jack Herrera's son. I want to talk about that too. Like there's so much. You just are this deep soul. Brian got to talk to Jack Herrera's son. You're this deep soul, and you are who you are, and it's believable and it's authentic. And I think of anyone to pick to run, some place like the Harrington Institute to help increase our diversity, someone like you who has put in the work, right? Who has knocked on the doors. We'll bring it full circle. You've knocked on the doors, and now, oh my God, watch what I came up with. You knocked on the doors, and now you're opening doors for people like you, so they don't have to knock. They just barge right in. Oh my God, I thought of that on the fly, people. So I love that you're doing it. I think you're a great representative of this culture, this cannabis culture. And by the way, I have to say this before I wrap up. I have probably about 7 times on the show talked about the person that told me that I need to come out of the cannabis closet to fully embrace my cannabis career. And if you heard this show, if you're listening, what did Brian say? Came out of his closet in 2013. It was Brian Adams is the one that told me that I needed to come out of my cannabis closet if I wanted to be successful, if I wanted to do this. It was this man right here who said, come out, join me, my son, join me, my brother, in the outside world, and let's just light it up and go. And so it's influential in ways maybe you didn't even realize, right? Like you inspire me in that way. So I really have appreciated, and I know I'm just fluffing you up here, I know, but I really appreciate
I had no idea that you felt that way about.
No, I do. It's that phrase. Like, no, well, Dustin knows. I've used the phrase cannabis closet, and I've talked about the person, and it's you, like because of that. And it's that authenticity. It's just, you're very authentic, even though we don't see each other that often. When we do, it's like we haven't missed a beat because you're very natural. You're just very natural. You're very comfortable in your own skin. And I think you're a great representative for this culture, for this movement. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the podcast. I'm excited for what you're doing with the Harrington Institute. So I'm looking forward to all those things. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Truly.
For all those things. And obviously, we'll put all the links to all those things, headcount.org, Brian's Patreon, the Harrington Institute. I'll always put Cleveland School of Cannabis down there. So we'll put a lot of links down below. Be sure to check those out. Don't forget, hit subscribe on this show. I know we want you to go to Brian's show. 2 shows. He just said he's run out of podcast content. Don't run out of podcast content. Subscribe to both. Check Brian out on audio. When you're there, follow us. Audio as well, because cannabis. Meet WM for socially, MEET, WM. Wayward Media. That's the show, people. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend, everyone. Dustin, I'll see you next Friday. Take care, everybody.